So when I was asked to do the keynote address for today, the image that came to mind was that of an American graduation ceremony, where the keynote speaker is always either a celebrity or someone with very impressive academic abilities. Well, I'm not a celebrity, and my academic achievements don't match up to the picture I have in my head of who should do a keynote address. So what I offer you today are some of my memories, some reflections on the journey of life, and how precious and unique each one of us are, and how the world around us has shaped us and formed us into who we are today. Stephen Kangasser was quite prophetic 2 years ago. I just marvel at this, when he suggested that we need to discuss the possibility of having a 48 class of 70 reunion. I remember him saying that we shouldn't wait until 2020 to have a reunion, because you never know what the future may hold. And wow, was he right. Our lives took on a whole new meaning as we faced, all of us have faced this worldwide onslaught of COVID-19. All our plan A's were put on hold as we worked through the impact of the pandemic on us, our families, friends, and work situations. We quickly had to construct a plan B for our lives. Sorry, we just need to admit Barbara.
Barbara's in, I've admitted her.
Okay, all right, thank you. And we thought it would be sad to miss out on the opportunity to celebrate our 50th reunion in 2020. And so plans began to unfold on how we could hold the reunion online. And this is our plan B. And what a unique occasion this is. Who knew in 1970 that 50 years later we could meet online for a reunion? And even a pandemic as huge as COVID-19 would not stop us from being together. In a way, it's even more special because people who may not have been able to make the trip to be in Benoni are with us now, and that's just awesome. Preparation, it's been wonderful to catch up with some of our teachers. Margaret and I met with Barbara Arthur and Clive Webber for coffee. We've spoken to Professor Emeritus Edwin Heath, who lives in Stellenbosch, Mr. Dick West, who has lived in Greece for more than 30 years, and Mr. Neil Clough, who still lives in Benoni with his wife Jenny. Mr. Barneycoat still lives in Johannesburg, and Miss Sandra Goos lives in Hermanus. And they all send their good wishes to all of you. Some of them were a little nervous about negotiating Zoom. So we, the Benoni High School class of 70, share a common history. We will always be past students of our alma mater, Benoni High School. For some, memories of high school may be painful. For others, some events achieve an almost mystical glow after all these years. I wonder if you remember going to Happy Teens on Saturday nights, lining up against the walls until someone plucked up enough courage to ask us to dance. I remember looking forward to Monday morning at school, where we would find out who got off with who. Monday conversations also included what song has made it to the top of the LM hit parade the night before. That always happened on a Sunday night. Do you remember the sports days? All happily standing on the grandstand with linked arms, singing our school anthem with pride and great gusto. With either Troy, Carthage, Rome, or Athens house colours displayed boldly in our rosettes, which were pinned to our dresses or shirts, shouting encouragement to those on the field to run as fast as they can. How could we forget being in the history class with Mr. West as he taught us about the successful Russian defense against Napoleon's invading grand army with Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture blasting from a speaker, and him running across the classroom, waving a flag out of the window, loudly humming the La Marseillaise. Some of you guys may unfortunately remember Mr. Klink's cricket bat. And I remember Miss Mazilis's futile mission for us to keep our tables and chairs straight and not chew gum in her library. Miss Cookamore is fondly remembered not only for teaching some of us commerce, but also her red lipstick and her curly black hair. My daughter also remembers this from her time at Benoni High. The majority of us, I think, traipse past the bicycle sheds every day at 2 o'clock to catch the buses to Benoni Central, and then a connecting bus to our particular suburb, although sometimes we walk to town. Who could ever forget walking past the infamous shit stream? In my work as a spiritual director, I encourage people to work through...
How are you? Benny, can you hear me?
Hello?
I'm good, but more importantly, how are you? I just saw a news flash that said that you were in hospital.
Norman, do you want to mute yourself?
You're okay?
Sorry, if you could just mute yourself.
Norman, you need to mute.
Norman?
Okay.
How's your back, Benny?
Okay. I wonder if I can just mute all and then...
If you can mute.
So, in my work as a spiritual director, I encourage people to work through a beautiful contemplation called Lilies of the Field, which uses the lily as a metaphor for life. So, how would you like to reflect with me? So, the lily does not choose in which field it will stand. When it grows from seed or runner, it finds itself in this field, with this hard clay or soft loam. And so we find ourselves on a field in a particular country, province, city, town, neighborhood. And we just consider for a moment how much of our life world is of my own making and how much is not. The lily has no control over what grows around it. When it shoots up, it might have to fight for its life with thorns or clumps of crabgrass, or it might be outshone by great sunflowers. So I have very little control over what surrounds me. I live in corporate structures, in political processes. I'm caught up in earning a living, buying insurance, preparing for illness and old age. I cannot change the stock market or banking practices or even taxation. I cannot make the slums disappear or dry up acid rain. So as we consider this, how much of my life world is my making, how much is not? So this lily of the field has absolutely no control over the weather, rain or drought. It must simply stand and endure. So I have no control over nations warring on one another or over international cartels poisoning the air with pollutants. I cannot control whether people around me drug themselves and fill the atmosphere of my life world with fear and violence. I cannot control people feeling prejudice towards me and my kind. I cannot make male chauvinism or strident feminism go away, or stop people from aborting babies or abusing their children. Once again, we consider how much of our life world is of our own making, and how much is not. The lily came up as a certain kind of lily, of a certain color and shape, and its shapeliness and health depended on the spring and the summer, and whether grazing cattle let it grow. So I came up a certain kind of person of a certain color and shape. So were my psychic health and physical shape much influenced by forces around me when I was growing up. And until now, all created things have let me live and even thrive, though many, many have threatened and still threatened me. And we consider again how much of my life growth is my making and how much is not. And for all that, not even King Solomon, dressed up in gold embroidered brocade, was any more lovely than that lily. So for all that has shaped and misshaped me, for all that has given me health and inflicted ill health on me, I am precious, valued, and honored in the eyes of God, and loved just the way I am. Otherwise, I would not be as I am. I was just thinking about if each of us had to write a book about our lives, can you imagine the stories we would hear? I have a sense that they would make for some incredible reading. And so I'll just leave you with these thoughts to consider. One of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, asks this question at the end of her poem, which is called The Summer Day. And she writes, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And for us, that is the years that we have left. And how are the years you spent at Benoni High significant in forming you and shaping you on your life's journey? Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That is just beautiful. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. So now we come to the time when we just think about those who are not with us anymore, friends, classmates that have passed away. So I'm going to start screen sharing with you, and we can have a look at those. Okay, so where is it? Stephen Kangasser very kindly put together a beautiful presentation on the 48th reunion. And I think even for those of us who were there, it's a lovely reminder. But for those of you who weren't there, I think you'll enjoy it. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Can you see this? No, I'm not sharing it. Sorry, guys. Houston, we have a problem. Okay. Is it Paul? Sorry, guys.
Will slowly go. Them on your name. Oh, that you can live by. And it's well. Am I your dream? And so, and the dream only go by. You know why? Don't you ever
Wasn't that awesome? Just love the music. I couldn't even sit still in my chair. And I guess you were trying to guess who was who there. We can chat about that a little later. And so I think Barbara Arthur has been admitted into the room. Just going to make sure that there's nobody else waiting. But lovely, lovely, lovely to have you with us, Barbara. I think you identified as Lacey. We've gone to 2 screens now. So Lacey P is Barbara Arthur. Is it? No? Okay, that's Genevieve. Sorry. Okay.
And I see Marilyn there. Hi. Yay. Early morning.
Very early morning. Okay, so we let's hope this next screen share will be better than the last one. Sorry. And now Jenny Leathers is going to read these messages for us. Some of our screens may be a little small to read the words. So Jenny, if you could unmute yourself.
Okay, here I am. Here we go. This is from Mrs. Barbara Arthur. She says, I would have taught you people much earlier than 50 years ago. In 1970, I was having my first son and I had left teaching. So I'm proud to remember all the people with whom I still have contact and still see around Benoni. To see and hear exactly what you've been up to, I'm very proud of your achievements and long may they last. Carry on and keep improving the world. Look after yourselves, your health, and everybody around you. Thank you, Mrs. Barbara Arthur. Our second message is from Mr. Clive Webber. I'm going to copy the person who started up the Apple organization and do this his way. He simply said, what I've learned in life might tie up with what each of you have learned. In this case, in the 1970 Matrics, I'll put it down in point 4. Most of the group will be about 68 years old now, closer to life and now, closer to life's end now and then before. So he says, don't fear death. Have a dependent anchor in life to give stability and to keep one focused. Look after nature. We are part of it and we are its caretakers. Point number 3, most people think that they are real experts. They really aren't. Number 4, life is largely about decisions we make. So please make wise decisions. Number 5, take responsibility for your decisions and for your actions. Number 6, look after your own health and your body. What you put into your body matters. Number 7, attitudes matter. A positive one helps and a negative one is a pain. I agree with him totally there. Number 9, families are sacred, so nurture them. And the last one says, materialism ultimately dies. Work on other priorities in your life. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clive Webber. And then our last message is from Miss Sandra Goos. She says, hello from Onrus near Hermanus in the Western Cape. 1970 is such a long time ago, with so much water done and gone under the bridge. We were then looking forward to moving to the new school building, which you were never to see, or maybe even use. Maybe your own children were there for their high school years. I think with fondness of the campus that you and I attended during our high school years. I had the opportunity of visiting a couple of years ago and was filled with nostalgia and pride as I walked around the lovely old building, where so much has not really changed. I'm sure that you've all done well, and BHS helped you as you went out to make a success of your lives. It would be so interesting to know what you have done and about your families and careers, and whether you've kept up the friendships that you had at school, and whether you recognized each other today, if you had not seen each other for all those 50 years. I can assure you that I don't recognize many of my classmates when we met for our 50th reunion, which was 11 years ago. We were not all that far ahead of you. Enjoy today and keep safe in this strange new world with its unique challenges. Let's all focus on what is important: family, friends, and those we love. My thoughts are with you all today, and if you would like to keep in touch with Anne, she has all the details. Bless you all and enjoy this very special day. From Sandra Goos. Then there's one from Mr. Neil Clough. Mr. Clough says, in a chat I had with Neil on the phone, he asked me to send his good wishes to all of you and says that he hopes you have achieved your goals in life. As we reminisced, he says out of the many students he taught, he remembers some, but once in a while, he has met up with an ex-pupil who says, "Hi, Mr. Clough, do you remember me?" And he doesn't have a cooking clue who the person is and has to ask them to help jog his memory. Neil shared with me that he left school in 1997 and began his teaching career when he was a mere 22 years old. As we chatted about the things that we have learned in life and chuckled, and said that he started teaching, he thought that he knew everything, but quickly discovered that he really did not. Neil spent the last 13 years of his career at the district office, visiting schools in a different capacity. He is now happily retired. And this is a lovely picture of him with his wife, Jenny. That's Mr. Neil Clough. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So the next thing on the program is we're going to hear from Alan Fine, who's going to reminisce a little with us on the sights of 70, the year 1970. So over to you, Alan.
Okay, let me share a little PowerPoint presentation on the screen. If I can remember how to do that. Has it come up? Looks like it has. Can you see it? Yeah, so this is just the cover page of the short presentation of about 15 slides, which are various class photos from the time we were at Benoni High School. And I'm sure, and it's going to be possible if anyone's interested to get a copy of this and these to them. So yeah, I've just gone through a few little things that were in the minds of some people, and I suppose mostly mine, during that year of 1970. Some of the things that struck me about life in 1970, or that didn't strike me, but that began to strike me a little later in my life. But first of all, I thought, let's find what kind of cars were around at that time. This, I suppose, was one of the top of the market cars. I'm sorry for the two cars that I have photographs of. I wasn't able to find any with TA number plates, and I didn't think of asking Stephen to do a cheat on which I suppose can easily be done these days. So that was the one. That was the one that I suppose some of the wealthier people drove around in. And this is the one where I was most jealous of people having, I guess. My friend Eric Bader had a white one, and in the following year, in 1971, he drove us all to Cape Town in it at the end of the year. This is the one that you drove if you were really cool. But I was only able to be a small part of it. And then I thought, let's look at a little bit of the sporting events of 1970. And it was quite astounding what I've found, or it was to me. Wikipedia, happily, is very useful for many things these days. Look at the South Africa Tennis Open played at Ellis Park, at the Ellis Park Tennis Stadium. The names that we had playing in the national tournament. Rod Laver, who was probably the best, and many people would say still one of the best, or one of the best who's ever played tennis. winning the men's singles against Fru Macmillan, who, for those of you who would remember, was actually a doubles player, and it was a complete fluke that he got to the final and even won the first set. But there we are. And then another two very famous names in the women's singles, Margaret Court defeating Billie Jean King in 3 sets. Men's doubles, yeah, the best ever South African doubles pairing, Bob Hewitt and Fru Macmillan, beating one of the best South African singles players ever, Cliff Drysdale, who was playing with a Brit named Roger Taylor. Pity about what happened to Bob. He should have known better. And then finally, some more well-known names in the women's doubles, Billie Jean King and Rosie Casals. I'm not quite sure that I remember the two Australians who were defeated, Kerry Melville and Karen Kranska, but there you are. Then decided to try and take a look at soccer that year. Wikipedia wasn't quite as useful in this, and I had to do quite a bit of searching to find a few things. But as we will see, in 1970, the professional league was won by Durban City, yay, because that's who I supported. Second, Cape Town City and Maritzburg. At the time, perhaps certainly I, was completely oblivious to Black African soccer going on very near to where we were. But, oh, by the way, on the previous one, unfortunately, Benoni United had disappeared by 1970, so they weren't even competing in that league. Yeah, it surprised me to find out that there wasn't much of a black league in 1970 because the clubs had been ordered to expel and deregister their coloured and Indian players who had been playing in those teams until then, and Orlando Pirates refused to do so. So there's no record of a league that year. There is in 1971, and it was the three big teams, or the three big teams that remained the three biggest teams for quite a few years after that, that were up there, Pirates, Chiefs, and Morocco Swallows. Disappointingly, in 1970, Tottenham Hotspur only managed 11th place. I am sacrificing live watching of their game this afternoon because it started at 5:30, but it's okay, it's being recorded. So I won't be deprived too much if anyone is too worried. Hopefully all goes well. And the winners that year was Everton, who oddly enough were at the top of the league until yesterday. They may still be. And Leeds United, recently promoted, came second. So that was English soccer in 1969. And then the other big thing in my life, and I think for many of us, was cricket. And there was this amazing Australian cricket tour to South Africa, the Test series, well, which ran from January to March. We could have done a quiz to see who remembered the names of the captains, but yeah, Ali Bacher and Bill Laurie. Ali Bacher, who you'll still see driving around in his golf cart at the Wanderers Golf Club if you ever go and play there on a Sunday morning, as I sometimes do. It was a good series for South Africa, won the series 4-0. Graham Pollock was the top batsman for us, Mike Proctor the top bowler, who took 26 wickets. Ian Redpath, the Australians' best batsman. And someone named Alan Connolly, who I have to admit I don't remember that well, their best bowler. And one of the tests was in Johannesburg from the 19th to the 24th of March. I definitely remember bunking school on one of those test days to go to the Wanderers and spend the day watching the test. I hope there are not too many teachers listening in, but I am willing to admit now that that's what I did. I wasn't really sick that day. So the top scorer was Lee Irvine, who, I'm sorry to tell the story again, but he happens to be a member of the golf club that I'm a member of, Joburg Country Club, and I see him there most Saturday mornings. And the amazing thing is that he is 10 years older than all of us, and he's still playing off a handicap of between 4 and 6, which is quite an achievement. It's something I'll probably never achieve, but he's still doing it at his in his middle to late 70s. Eddie Barlow, of course, did very well in the second innings. That was one of the games we won. However, I mean, those were very good sporting times for us, but there was a new reality was about to hit us. And it hadn't occurred to me for a long time, but 1970 was actually the year that many, many things began to change in South Africa. A man named Peter Hain, who still visits us quite often, got involved and arranged for the South African cricket tour later that year of England to be called off. It was, I suppose, one of the earlier signs that the way South Africa was run was not welcome in the world. That was one of the first examples of that. And it wasn't the only one in 1970, because there was also a very big effort to stop the South African Springbok rugby tour of New Zealand, which also was called off. Which naturally got me thinking that I also need to look at a little bit of the politics around us at the time. Most of us being too young, me included, to really have an idea of what was going on. So what I did is I tracked down this book, which became a very good annual reference book on events in South Africa, which cost the princely sum of R2. I managed to borrow it for free this time now. And I just took a couple of issues that I found in paging through the book that I thought was worth highlighting here before we finish. And the first thing, obviously, this is a school reunion, so I had to focus on education. And yeah, so I looked at the report on education and the budgets for education in South Africa that year. And as we can see, there were about 19,200,000 people who were citizens of South Africa. White people were about just over 3 million of those. And 166 million rand was spent on our education. And obviously then went on to contrast it with education for Black children. And I've got Jenny Leather's photograph covering the number, but I think it is about 45 million rand, if I remember correctly from what I saw in the when I was putting this together.
You're quite right, Ellen. It's 45,182,000.
Thanks, Jenny. And obviously, with African people being by some way the majority, that gives some idea of the discriminatory spending on education, the consequences of which I guess are going to be with us still for a long time to come. And when somebody, I'm not sure who it was, asked why, the then Secretary for Bantu Education, Dr. Van Zyl, wrote to Die Burger newspaper in reaction to a reader's letter, who pointed out that if the amounts currently applicable to whites would be applied to blacks, so that would increase the cost of spending on black education from 45 million to 400 million, I suppose, which is essentially saying that spending on white children was about 10 times, for every white child was about 10 times of that for every black child. And yeah, that I suppose was one of those things that is part of our history. The other piece of politics of that year that I picked up on is that there was a general election that year. The National Party won 118 of the seats, the United Party 47, and the Progressive Party won. On the right-hand side, you can see, even though I can't, I think more or less the percentages that each party received. Anyway, so that was just some recollections of 1970 put together, and I hope it jogs a few memories, including some pleasant ones. And yeah, that is it. And thanks, Anne. Over back to you.
Thank you, Alan. That was absolutely awesome and so interesting. Thank you for all the trouble you went to provide us with those figures. I was fascinated and quite horrified.
Anyway, it was really interesting. Thanks I'm glad we planned to do it.
And so, although this is not over, Margaret's going to just say some words of thanks and farewell, but please don't go after this, because we're going to unmute everyone and we can have a chat afterwards. So, Margaret, over to you.
And I have unmuted myself, but I'm just...
Margaret, you have muted yourself.
Okay, I've unmuted.
Okay, you're unmuted now.
Okay. Okay, can you do, you can't see me now though, hey?
No, we can't. So just run your mouse over the video and...
I haven't got enough money.
You can just press
start the video. No, I can't start the video.
Start video.
Okay, there we are now.
Have you?
Okay.
Lovely. If you could just
thank you, Anne. I'm just
lower your screen a bit, because we can only see the top of your...
Okay.
There, that's better. Thanks, Max.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anne. I'm just going to say a few words of thanks, actually, to all the Matric class of 1970. It was a pleasure and an honor to share 5 great years together with such a group of incredible people. We can all be grateful that we had each other in the crucial formative high school years of our life. We started off in standard 6 from primary schools from the Benoni West, Tom Newby and Rhinefield Primary, and a few other schools. We became friends, sometimes changing groups. Most times we were together till our Matric years. After school, we traveled our own paths. Some of us struggled, most of us were successful, but we survived and flourished. 2 years ago, we formed a committee to start our reunion, and we did a lot of the groundwork. And as Anne spoke early on, which is thanks to Dad, it was easier to get hold of a lot of people. Some of us live in other towns, different parts of the world, but 30% of us still live in Benoni. We'd like to thank all of you for your continued efforts to remain connected to the class of 1970. We've definitely come a long way from telex, telegrams, fax machines, and now our Facebook page. With maturity and wisdom, we definitely made our engagements a lot easier, as we don't have to compete with everybody. We're all the same, we're almost retirement, and rather focused on our dear friends, family, and grandchildren. And I would like to propose a few toasts to everybody, and I just hope you all got some champagne or wine. And my first toast is to Benoni High School, because if it wasn't for Benoni High, we wouldn't be here. So can we raise our glasses to Benoni High School? And cheers to all of us. And then secondly, to our friends worldwide and local who are survivors. Some have had illnesses, some have lost children, some have lost dear ones. So we'd like to give them, because they are real survivors, so to our dear friends who have really survived. And then a toast to ourselves. I think we've all come, we're all in the same age group. We're all hopefully relatively healthy, and we deserve a toast. So this is all to dear friends, close and far apart. And it's actually wonderful that we could share today, and all the people that have joined us. I think we actually surprised ourselves that so many have joined in, and we just hope they enjoyed all the presentations. And special thanks to Anne, who spearheaded it, to Alan and to Stephen for today's presentations. And we just hope we can just have a bit of fellowship and enjoy ourselves now and interconnect and do a bit of catch up. So to all of you, thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful to see so many people. Thank you, and cheers to everybody.